Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Chris Miles of MoneyRipples.com. Chris, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Always, man. Always a pleasure.
Definitely. Pleasure is all ours, and definitely looking forward to hearing more about you and all the awesome things that you're doing. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Chris so you can hear about all of those awesome things. And Chris, the cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor, is a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to get their money working for them today. He's an author, podcast host of the Chris Miles Money Show, and has been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, EOFire, and has a proven reputation with his company, Money Ripples, getting his clients fast, life-altering financial results. In fact, his personal clients have increased their cash flow by over $200 million in the last 10 years. Chris, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm so excited. Let's do this.
Let's do it then. So to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through your CEO story? We'll let you get started with your business.
Yeah. So, it's funny because I actually had no intention of going into business other than being a consultant, right? My whole goal was to become a business consultant, but I figured if I want to do that, shouldn't I have real life business experience? So it was in the middle of college. I was just about to get my bachelor's. I decided to drop out with one class to go. It actually wasn't even a class. It was a paper. I just had to create a paper. It was an independent project. Finished that, I get my bachelor's. So I dropped out, said, I'll just take a 1-year hiatus, right? Just to build some extra experience before I get my master's. Well, the first thing that came up of creating a business was being a financial advisor, not realizing they take anybody off the street, right? So I said, hey, let's do this. Great. It was commission only. So really I was thrown into being an entrepreneur right from the get-go. The thing is, I ended up liking being an entrepreneur because I want to control my destiny. I want to control my freedom. And that was really my motivation. I didn't want somebody else to tell me what hours I needed to work and how much money I can or cannot make. So I actually dropped out of college, never went back. Although I did try once after I had retired when I was 28, and they said, sorry, you're gonna have to take a 1.5 years of school. I said, for a bachelor's in sociology? No, thank you. That's not worth it. So I dropped out. But that's the thing, as I started going that journey, I did that for 4 years as the traditional mainstream advisor. Realized that people that were doing that, following that advice, including advisors themselves, were never financially free. So I left that, started following what other like business owners and real estate investors people were doing. And then I was actually able to retire myself when I was 28.
Nice. Absolutely love that. And now you're giving all the keys to the car, so to speak, or keys to all the knowledge away to so many people. But I think that's, so, true about so many people where you don't actually become financially free. You hear that this is the way to do it, but you don't really have that knowledge and information on how exactly to make that come to fruition. So I appreciate you for creating so much opportunity for people to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know I touched a little bit upon, what people can find on your site. Could you talk a little bit more about that, how you serve your clients, and also what we can find and listen to on your podcast?
Yeah. So now I'm kind of in the semi-retirement mode, right? I can never fully retire because nobody wants me to. So I just do a couple things part-time. One, I do like consulting. I actually help clients figure out ways to get out of the rat race, retire early, right? And do it generally outside of like the stupid stock market and things like that. But whether it's in real estate or wherever it might be, getting them to be financially free and out of the rat race where they work because they want to, not because they have to. And that even includes business owners, because the thing is, we think we have a business, right? We kind of paint ourselves into a job. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is like, how do we free ourselves from the shackles of that business, even to where we work by choice, not by necessity.
Yeah, and that's absolutely huge because I think so many times, especially, if you're passionate about what you start as far as your business, you really love what you're doing. But as you said, sometimes they can quickly turn into that job that you want to get away from, but you can't even fire yourself. So you get kind of stuck. But I love, how you're able to kind of help people, free themselves, no matter where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And can you talk a little bit more about what we can find and listen to on your podcast too?
Yeah, my podcast, it kind of just goes into that. Like your show, it's pretty quick. I try to keep about 20-minute episodes, but it's really all about changing their mindset around what you think about money is true, right? Because everything we've been taught about money with the mainstream media and everything is completely false. It's really just brilliant marketing is what it is. Like banks and these financial institutions that want you to throw money with them forever, right? And it kind of brings me back to when I was the traditional financial advisor, right? I remember I met with a brother-in-law of mine who his family had become self-made millionaires, right? Like his dad, I remember, it was so awesome. His dad had actually in the 1960s, he was homeless at age 16. He ran away from home. And then when he was 18, he was able to go to Georgia and convince Chrysler to start the first Chrysler dealership in the state of Utah, right?
Oh.
And the cool thing is, by the time he was 21, he was a millionaire. And in the 1960s, being a millionaire was a lot bigger than being a millionaire now. It's not hard to be a millionaire now, right?
Right.
But then he was actually able to be a millionaire by the age of 21. And so I remember I went to go talk to my brother-in-law. I was like, I'm going to put on my best suit. I'm going to prepare, like overly prepare to show him why mutual funds is the place to invest, right? And I went into him and I gave him my nice little 45-minute spiel, little PowerPoint presentation I made just for him, right? And I even brought the best guy from my office to back me up, so we could try to convince him that he's wrong. And by the end of it, my brother-in-law said, "Okay, let me get this straight. You have $10,000 that if I just gave you $10,000 to play with, you're saying you can make me 12%, or that's $1,200 a year, right?" It's like, well, there's no guarantees, but yeah, that's what's done since 2000 BC, right? So yeah, pretty much like $1,200. Wouldn't that be awesome? He's like, "Now, Chris, I can take the same 10 grand. And I have a big, he has a semi truck business, right? He's like, I can buy a semi truck. If you do a down payment with 10 grand on a semi truck, turn around a few months later, flip it, and make $30,000. So, Chris, why would I invest my money with you?" And I was like, well, you should be diversified. Like, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You should put more money in other places, like the things I offer you, the things that I can sell you, right? And that's when I realized I was a salesman in a suit, right? That's really all I was. That financial advisors are not financial experts by any way, shape, or form. Ask a financial advisor if they've ever been able to retire off of the investments, not off the commissions they're earning off of you, but actually the investments they're recommending. And you won't find them. I guarantee it. Like, it's so rare you'll find somebody, and usually it's because they made so many millions of dollars in their business from sales, and then they just throw it in some crappy account that pays them a little bit of interest, piddly interest, right? The truth is, as a business owner, you have the greatest opportunity for wealth possible, right? There are other things. I mean, almost everything outside of what financial advisors offer is better than what they offer, right? So you can actually create more freedom doing it that way. And that's really what my show and all my stuff, my website and everything goes into.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that. And I think so many times, as you kind of reference, and we definitely know, as entrepreneurs and business owners, you want to have ownership, you want to have freedom. That's why you create it. That's why you put your blood, sweat, and tears into everything that you do. And you quickly find out that you're listening to the marketing, as you said, and the sales,
Right.
not so much I don't want to know if I want to say logic, but just that information that we sometimes aren't aware of. So I appreciate you for creating, that information, that knowledge, and that awareness in so many different ways for people.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what would you consider to be what I call your secret sauce, which is the thing you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique? It could be for yourself or your business.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of one and the same in some ways, shape, or form, right? I mean, definitely with my business, I mean, you just won't find people that are telling people to do the opposite and actually create real results where they become free, right? And part of my gift, that I have is I've always been good at finding patterns and seeing things. Like, I remember in fourth grade, we're doing our little multiple times tables, right? And we got to the 10 times table. And I remember as I was going through it, I saw the pattern and I raised my hand to the teacher, and it was a quiet test, right? And I was like, I just have to add a zero behind all these numbers. She's like, shh, don't tell the rest of the class. And she'd make them do 0 times 6 this, and then trying to do the whole long multiplication way. I'm like, screw that. Like, I'm just getting this thing done, hand it in, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's been like for me. Like, I'm really good at finding resources, finding the potential in the money, and saying, how can we make this create more? Like, I get so many people, even business owners, that have cash just sitting around, whether in their business or at home. They're like, what do I do with this? Because I don't trust these stupid financial advisors in the stock market. Because if I'm going to invest in a company, it's going to be my own, right? And so what do I do with this money? And that's the thing that's so much fun, is that there's so many options to actually create those multiple streams of passive income to create freedom.
Yeah, and that's absolutely huge. And I think so many times, again, not having the awareness about those options, or sometimes because you've heard things so many times that you become conditioned and you don't look for the other way. You don't know the other way. Just kind of, I love that example that you gave, because I feel like that happens in real life, where a lot of times you're supposed to put your money X, Y, and Z because you're always told that you're supposed to do it. Even though, you're raising your hand and saying, this doesn't make sense, there's an easier way. You still kind of get quieted, I guess you could say.
That's right. Exactly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
You know, it may not be an app or anything because I'm kind of low tech, but I'll tell you the number one book that I listen to, like you say, I don't read books, I just use Audible, right? So
Mhm.
there is an app I do use. But on Audible, there's a great book called The Pumpkin Plan, which is by Mike Michalowicz. So if you've heard of Profit First, which he's most famous for, right? Great book. But he has another follow-up book that's lesser known called The Pumpkin Plan. And this is what changed my business in 2015 because I started becoming more active, right? Like I had to retire a second time in 2016. Well, to do that, I had to cut off all the crap that was there. And the pumpkin plan is really about that. It's finding those core activities that drive the majority of your revenue. Who are the best clients and everything, and feed the crap out of that. And that's really what I went into. And it seriously changed my business. I went from working 50, 60 hours a week down to like 10 and my revenue went up. In fact, in the last 5 years, I've had about 9 times the revenue, 900% growth with
Nice.
1,500% growth in profit because of that book.
Nice. Absolutely love that. Yeah. And Mike has been a guest, on the show and he provides a tremendous amount of value. And I think it kind of speaks, correct me if I'm wrong, to that
Mhm.
80-20 principle where a lot of
Yeah.
times we're doing 100% of the work, not realizing that there's a small kind of aspect of our daily activities or clients that really are driving the revenue and driving our potential growth.
Yeah, I call it Pareto the crap out of the Pareto's principle, right? The 80-20 principle is not just get the top 20%, right? But find the top 20 of the 20, which is your top 4% that creates 96% of your revenue and
Mhm.
dive into that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Double down on that and forget
Yeah.
everything else. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. And that could
Okay.
be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
The biggest thing I would say is follow your gut, right? Like trust your intuition, even if it goes against advice you've gotten from mentors, business coaches, or whatever. Because I'll tell you that 2015, I had a business coach telling me to do one thing in expanding my business. I did the opposite because my gut just said, that doesn't feel right. In fact, I'm going to do not more like she recommends. She wanted me to do more live events. I started doing less live events. And the funny thing is, my profits went up and my revenue still went up too. And I think that's the key is that it might seem crazy, but if your gut says do something, do it. If your gut says don't do something, don't do it. Like follow that despite whatever logic you might hear out there.
Yeah, and I love that. And, in so many different aspects as we kind of talked about, in your story, how you've been able to kind of do that. And I think so many times we feel like we should be doing everything. And especially in entrepreneurial form, a lot of times you're by yourself, so to speak, because you're going against the grain. And sometimes that's the uncomfortable part. But a lot of people that become free and become, wealthy, however we define that, are because they go against the grain and they try something new.
That's right. Yeah, and that's fine. We're entrepreneurs. We kind of go against the grain anyways because we don't want the freaking W-2 job. We want to create a different life that other people don't have. And if you follow that gut, that intuition, I'm telling you, like that will pay you more money than almost any advice you're going to get out there.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. And now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Chris, what does being a CEO mean to you?
To me, being a CEO means the buck stops here, right? Like ultimately everything rolls up, whether you succeed or fail, it's really up to you. You have that control, that ownership. And as a CEO, you got to speak different languages. You know, you got to be able to speak the language of marketing. You got to be able to speak the language of operations. You got to be able to speak the language of finance. You got to speak the language of just about everything, right? You got to understand all your departments, but you don't have to be the expert in all of it. And so you really are that visionary. You are that person that's helping to move forward that vision and that passion, that real vision of the company and what you're trying to create and when you're trying to create value for other people. And so I really feel like it's you are kind of the generalist, right? You are the person that's kind of really the captain of the ship to lead it forward.
Yeah, and I love that kind of metaphor you talked about, learning and knowing these different languages, because I think
Mhm.
so many times in business there's so many different moving parts that it's really hard to kind of control everything, but you want to be able
Mhm.
to be versed in that knowledge and language, whether you're working or you're working with experts like yourself, to be able to kind of understand exactly what's going on. And I think that you talked about that decision piece when with the business coach that was telling you to do X, Y, and Z. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
times we forget that the decisions that we make allow us to be able to serve our clients on a higher level. Because if you had not made that decision, maybe we'd be having an entirely different conversation. So sometimes those decisions that we make add up into the impact that we can have as well.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Chris, truly appreciate that. And I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get hold of you, subscribe to the podcast, and find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Yeah, I just say, I encourage you guys that no matter what level you're at, man, there's always another level. There's always a next, right? And keep that fire burning. That's the big thing. You can follow me one of two places. You can either go to moneyripples.com, like you mentioned earlier, or you can go follow my podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show, that you can find on iTunes or any other podcast app as well. But yeah, I'd love to serve you any way I can.
Awesome. Truly appreciate that, Chris. And to make it even easier, we'll have the links and information in the show notes as well, too. But I appreciate all the work that you do. Appreciate the time that you took today. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
You too. Thanks, Gretchen.
All right. And I'll cut it off here. Hello. This is Gresh again from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest again on the show. And we had a phenomenal interview with Chris Miles of themoneyripples.com. Chris, it's awesome to have you back on the bonus section.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had a tremendous amount of value that you provided and so much knowledge about kind of going against the grain, especially financially. But a lot of times we can use that in a lot of aspects, of our business. So just for people that may be listening to this, could you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do and all the awesome work you provide.
You bet. So kind of like I mentioned before, I'm semi-retired, right? I was able to actually get out of the rat race for the second time in 2016. So I'm one of the few people you ever heard that says I retired twice by the time I'm 39. But I work as an anti-financial advisor and cash flow expert, which means that pretty much I think stock markets suck and that we should invest in things that actually are inside of our control, things like our businesses, real estate, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only other person's name might be Michael Jordan or something like that that's retired that time and decided to come back. So I appreciate you doing that. And I know one of the things that we kind of touched on a little bit, during the interview, and we talked a little bit offline about was the different ways and different methods by which people can build and grow their passive income. Can you talk a little bit more about passive income, what it is, and then the different ways by which we can build that?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, as a business owner, for the last 20 years, I've learned a huge lesson is that having multiple streams of passive or residual income is essential, right? Especially if you want freedom, because most of us got into business not because we wanted to have a high paying job, right? That's nice and all, but really we want that freedom. We want that control of our time, our own money, and everything else. And most people that go into business never find it. Like they're constantly always killing what they eat, so to speak, right? They're always hunting, but they're never in a place where they're getting fed, And that's the thing I learned myself is that I knew that for freedom, if I wanted real freedom and time with my family and things like that, I had to create multiple streams of income that don't rely upon me always being there, right? So two different types of streams of income I mentioned there. One is passive. Passive income, by my definition, is doing investments where they pay you passively, where you don't have to keep working. You might set it up, but that investment will keep paying you every single month, quarter, or whatever on a regular basis, right? Residual income is usually income streams created through your business where same thing. Maybe you've created a system or some sort of form inside of your business that allows you to keep getting paid after you've set it up, right? So example of residual income in your business might be like maybe you have online products. Maybe you have something that's on autopilot, so to speak, right? Where it just keeps paying out. It has maybe a delivery system that you don't have to keep babysitting, right? That could be like, for example, one huge one that was for me that got me to retire the first time was what now people call affiliate, right? Back then we called it referrals. I remember I had a guy that brought up a huge thing to me. He was a millionaire himself, and he said, hey, at this time I was a mortgage broker and I just quit being a financial advisor, right? I was done with that. I couldn't do it ever again. I'm not going to teach about money. I'll just do ballroom dancing. I'll teach ballroom dancing at the local university, and I'll do mortgages, right? And when I was doing that, he said, well, if money were no issue, what would you spend your time doing? And I said, I probably would teach ballroom dancing. Like, I really love doing that. And he's like, okay, well, what about mortgages? I said, well, I like people getting the results. I like teaching. I hate the paperwork. He says, well, Chris, why don't you find somebody who will do the paperwork for you? So I did. I found a guy who was the nerdy kind of guy that was good at paperwork, but not good at getting new clients. I said, hey, if I bring people to you, they're already ready to go. You just need to basically give them the mortgage, help me do the paperwork. Will you cut me in 50%? And he said, well, of course. I said, great. And so I'd spend a half hour to an hour with the client. and then send them on to him. And then a month or so later, I get this check for $1,000 or $1,500. And I thought, well, that's pretty good leverage of time and money, considering I used to hustle a lot for that same amount. And so I started realizing I could do this to other companies too, other businesses that maybe I'm often referring to, like even a wholesale jeweler that I would refer to. And they would send me like a $50 check every once in a while. And pretty soon I had like these 4 or 5 companies that were paying me 4 or 5 grand a month. And I was like, dang, that was easy. Like that was before Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. I'm like, I was living the 4-Hour Work Week in 2006, because I was literally just connecting people and making about 5 grand a month. And so that residual income stream can be awesome within your business. But that's not all, right? Like, wait, there's more, right? It's the passive income side too, right? Which is, how do we take some of the money we're earning and not just throwing it into the business? Because any money you earn, if you ever ask Mike Michalowicz, who does Profit First, he says, whenever you're taking money and you're reinvesting back in the business, you have no profit, right? Because if you reinvest it, you didn't actually reinvest, you just spent it. It's going back into business. And maybe you make more money, but what do you actually keep? And so I always tell people, hey, keep a good portion of the money you're making, reinvest some in the business too to build and grow and scale it, but also get money on the sideline in your personal life to pay you passive streams of income. And that's where I do things like real estate. By the way, I buy real estate where I don't touch it. I don't manage it. I don't deal with tenants, toilets, or trash. I let property managers do all the work for me. I just have to buy it and then collect the rent checks. And the thing is, I'm making easily 12% plus a year, just cash on cash return, not to mention all the appreciation and other growth. I mean, I usually make at least 25, 30, 40% a year off my real estate. And what that does, that builds other streams of income that even if my business were to get shut down, I've got something to back me up. Because if your business is the only stream of income coming in, you are in danger. You need those other streams of income coming in too. So as much as it's good to have residual coming in through your business, which creates time freedom in your business, you also need passive streams of income to protect you in case something happens, some law changes or COVID or some crap like that happens that rocks your world, and you can pivot. And it's so much easier to pivot when you're not desperate. And when you're desperate, that's when people don't want to pay you money. It's when you're relaxed and you can think, that's when you make the most money in your business and you can create more growth and you create more freedom.
Yeah, I would probably even, go a step further. As I think a lot of times when you're stressed or you're frustrated or whatever, you also make really bad decisions a lot of times too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
no one definitely wants to do that. And, as we talked about, during the interview, what was coming up for me is the E-Myth. And in the beginning of the E-Myth, it talked a lot about, you are really passionate about what it is that you do. So you decide to create a job and you create this job that you don't want because you're doing all of the things in addition to the actual work that you were doing before at a potential job. And I think, you touched on really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Why did you want to start a business? You wanted that freedom and that opportunity. And I think that when you obviously take steps to be able to create that passive and residual income, it allows you that opportunity, but it also kind of creates a moat, I guess you can say, so that if something does happen to some aspect or some part of your business, maybe you're not completely at a free fall, I guess you can say, in your life, in your personal life and business.
And you may not want to do your business forever. I had a client, she was in her mid 50s. She actually hired a business coach who referred her to me, and she was scaling up her business. And then she said, you know what, Chris, I don't want to scale my business more. I want to get out of it. And so that's where we said, hey, great, let's take the money, put it to work. And she retired to Bali the next year. It was awesome. Like she's out scuba diving, teaching some yoga, and that's it. Totally separate from her business. But again, you want options. I believe that when you have more options, that's where you have freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it speaks to sometimes we forget. And I think that it's starting to change, I guess, to some degree, where a lot of times we don't realize. I know it's definitely changed from a job standpoint where you used to have a job and you have it for 40, 50 years and then you retire and so on and so forth. But even I think within our businesses, a lot of times we forget that we're going to evolve as people. Our businesses are going to evolve. Our interests are going to evolve. So why not create as much freedom so that you don't have to be stuck in one way to make a decision about the rest of your life?
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Chris, truly appreciate that. And I know you have a phenomenal podcast as well, too. So can you tell us, anything additional that we can find in your podcast? And of course, how best way that people can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things that you're working on.
Yeah. On my podcast, I talk about all kinds of things from, improving your cash flow to building your business to increasing your passive income and different creative ways to do that, like getting those multiple streams. So you can find the Chris Miles Money Show on iTunes or anywhere else. Or you can just go to my website, moneyripples.com, or on YouTube. You can find us anywhere.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And again, we will have the links and information in the show notes as well too. But Chris, appreciate you for hopping on. This bonus section provided a tremendous amount of value, and of course, remind us of how important it is for us to find that freedom and provide a way by which we can do that. So appreciate you, my friend, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.